John, you're on mute.
Welcome to the Seaside's Podcast Match Reaction Show. Birmingham City 1, Blackpool 1. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Seasiders Podcast Match Reaction Show. Birmingham City 1, Blackpool 1, as you all heard on the audio podcast, because this is being recorded direct into my mixer. So everyone will have heard that flawless introduction on the audio podcast.
Apart from when you said it was 1-1.
1-0 even. Apart from that, it's been as fantastic an introduction as ever. And Tim, what a fantastic show we've got for you tonight. I'm just trying to big everyone else up a bit.
Yeah. You've surpassed yourself tonight, John, I think.
I'm just trying to downplay the game, Tim. You interrupted me in full flow. Drab game, drab result, drab day. There's something about Birmingham City away, that playoff game aside, that always has these undertones and connotations, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was a cold day always round, wasn't it? And as we set off from Polton, we were being sent pictures of snowy scenes in Birmingham. We had Athers snowed in and unable to get to the game. So I've got to say, when we set off, we half thought we might end up staying at the pub stop on the way and having a pub crawl around Sandbach before coming back home. So in some respects, maybe we should. But it was. It's one of those bitterly cold days that you just never seem to warm up at whatever you do, wherever you go and stand, half time, whatever, and feet were like blocks of ice at the end.
Sean, I believe you made the trip over there. Welcome, by the way.
I did not make the trip over there.
I thought you did.
No, I didn't go. I was going to, but the weather definitely made me think a second about that afterwards.
But you produced your first article for Lancs.live today, didn't you?
I did indeed.
Round of applause for Sean.
Thank you very much.
The accreditation has come in handy finally.
Yes, I put some things on a keyboard and then put it on a website. Yes, very technical.
And Mitch, you're almost back in the land of the living after your brush with death with coronavirus.
Yeah, I'm all better than ever, good as new. But no, I didn't go either. We went away for the weekend because it was my other half's birthday. So unfortunately, Birmingham City away might have got me in some trouble in those circumstances. Or fortunately, as it turned out. Really.
Oh yeah, well, I was planning on going, but obviously I'm involved in the youth football and I had to manage a team for that. But it was cruelly written off by the weather, so I was kind of a bit annoyed. I could have gone to Birmingham, but I think, Tim, it was a blessing in disguise. So yeah, so Tim, as you rocked upon Ashley's coach and you saw the team sheet, what was the mood? I'll just run through it. Grimshaw, Sterling, Potato Husband, James, Dougal, Connolly, Mitchell, Anderson, Dale, and Medina. Actually, I'll just come to Sean first before you, Tim. Sean, you picked quite a decent team on the preview show, and it was, again, a team that looked good on paper, but nowhere near what the manager picked. Talk us through your reaction and Critchley's thought process on this one.
Yeah, we got the front three, so the attacking midfield three, so we'll give ourselves a little bit of credit.
I think Joe said he's got a sneaky suspicion Dale's going to start.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah. All right, Tim, let's come to you. Yeah, we can hear Sean.
Yeah.
So, Tim, same question. Mood on the coach when you saw the team.
Yeah, I think my my immediate thoughts was I thought Lavery might have started, and I think the slight issue I have with that formation is it leaves Medine quite isolated up front, which I think works quite well if you're somewhere like Forest or Sheffield where they're really coming at you. But I felt that Birmingham were there for the taking, really, and the other big surprise was Conley starting. I thought after Swansea, I don't think anybody would have got anything other than Wintle and Dougal for centre mid, and I think that's the big curveball that Critch has thrown in. I do struggle unless Wintle had some form of an injury. I do struggle with why you would do it because whilst he's played a reasonable amount of football, we've just come out of the back of a 10-day international break where he'll have had a chance to recharge his batteries, and we'd missed it. We didn't have the two playing together at Swansea either. So we've the last two games we've played, for me, we've not played our best midfield, and that's no disrespect to Conley, but for me, he's a defender, and I think we lost some cohesion in the middle of the park for me when those two don't play together. And and you can obviously throw Stewart in there, and Stewart's got the ability to do that, but while he's out, I was a bit bemused, to be honest. I was very disappointed that those two weren't starting.
Same question to you, Sean, for you. You muted yourself and appeared.
Yeah, I was just too scared to give my answer. No, I actually thought the lineup was fine. And to be honest, as we'll come on to, with the first half performance, I think it was an ideal time to drop Wintle. I don't think that Birmingham were up to much personally. I don't think they're a very good side. And I thought that we controlled a lot of the midfield play. And I think that what really mattered in this game was that every single person in that lineup there that's starting knows their positional sense, particularly off the ball. And I think that was the highlight for me, was how well and disciplined we were off ball. And you saw that every single chance that we had in that first half was down to that structure in the play. I think that later down the line, I think that Colin Connolly was absolutely fine in the first half. I think that when Connolly started to go off kilter, as we'll come on to, is later down the line when Bowler came on, and it disrupted our system and shape, because essentially what we were doing in the first half was Mitchell, Anderson and Dale were basically focusing on tracking their three centre halves and disrupting the space to be able to play it out to their wing backs. And then that forced them into a central midfield pass, which Connolly and Dougal were already on the shoulder of that midfielder accepting the pass. So it was always a risky pass, and we kept winning turnovers that way and getting the ball at the park and being able to counter through the middle rather than being direct. And I think that as soon as you lack one of those elements in a game where we were really spot on in the way we were playing, in terms of sort of Bowler's work rate off the ball in particular and his positional sense and discipline, I think that then we lost that. And as soon as you lose that system where you're tracking their defenders' passes, it opens up a gap to play it in behind, and it leaves the central midfield pair overrun and stretch because they've got an extra man advantage because they play a 3-5-2. So I think that actually, personally for me, I think it was absolutely fine. And I think the difference was that we lacked quality in the final third. And on another given day, with the way we were playing on the ball in the first half, I think we could have had 2 or 3 if we had been more clinical in that situation.
I think clinical being the operative word there. Mitch, as Kelly said in the comments, Jordan Gabriel couldn't second guess any of the Jordan Gabriel or none of the lads can second guess the team, so we've got no chance. But a bit strange to see Jordan Gabriel out, wasn't it?
It was, and when I saw the team, my instant reaction was, what the hell is this aberration? And then I thought about it for about 20 minutes, and I decided it was actually quite a good idea. And the way I read it was that Connolly was in to kind of free up Anderson. So he was in as a pure defensive midfielder. I think Tim mentioned before that, Kevin Stewart can do that job. And Connolly's probably the nearest thing we have to substitute for Stewart. And I thought I read that as basically giving Keshi a free role, if you like, which Critch never does. He never really gives a player a free role. And I thought he came as close as we've ever seen to giving somebody a completely free role with that selection. I agree it was a bit odd to see Gabriel out. And yeah, take Tim's points that we've just been through a break. But if anybody gives everything every game, and anybody might benefit from just a little bit of freshness, it's Gabriel, because he gives absolutely everything. And we've all been really impressed with Sterling at right back, even though he wasn't so good at right-sided centre half the other day. So I just kind of took that as, Dujon's turn to play, really. And I really, like I say, I really changed my mind from thinking it was one of the worst teams I'd ever seen to thinking, actually, no, this could be quite an interesting lineup, because I do quite like that three. I do quite like the three behind Medine. If the three behind Medine are lively players, and I think those three are lively players with a bit of pace, I think it can work.
Hey Tim, obviously you're really one that was there in this room. So what was what was your journey up there like on the bus, and B, what was the atmosphere like? And I thought, let's do C. How do you think we started the game?
Yeah, well, dealing with them in turn, obviously ended up the journey was fine. I think the snow was pretty much melted away by the time we got there, so any concerns there were alleviated. Sam Batch, you only think of it as service stations, but the actual town's quite nice and some nice boozers
really
there.
A town there, you're right. I did not know that. I just thought it was a service station.
It's like a nice Cheshire town, to be honest. Quite a few pubs and farmers market on, selling all your decent pies, which came in quite handy when we were getting back on the coach. And maybe you should do like a video fans diary of your away day and put it on YouTube. Yeah, well, that's a new idea. So anyway, we got there, and it was I just went in the ground and had a couple of beers. I thought it was a little bit subdued on the concourse as compared with the way it had been in recent weeks. I don't know why.
For me, it's just a depressing. I don't know why the St Andrews. I've been there 2 3. Just find the place to hold the town. I find the city depressing. I find the stadium, the concourse. I don't know why. Got some sort of.
It was not lively at half time as it happened. And there was a decent turnout by Blackpool. I think if you've been on the away football away days, there's a full picture of the fans. There's a good 1,500 there, and in reasonably good voice. Probably not quite hitting the heights of Sheffield or Forest or Middlesbrough, but nevertheless, it was a decent turnout, and notwithstanding the cold, it was a reasonably impressive first half. I always don't like it when we sort of kick towards our goal in the first half, and we just seem to be on a run of that at the moment. We've had the last 3 games, we've had it, haven't we? So at Swansea and at home against West Brom, and then again on Saturday. So that I always like to think that they're going to be attacking us second half. It's just a psychological thing, but I thought we started well. I thought it looked good. I still don't get the Connolly thing personally, and I don't think Medina had his greatest game, and and I hear
even
what they
I'm
say.
going to admit that.
When you've John.
I don't think we look fluid enough up front. But in the first half, we looked like we had the beating of them. They looked very, very poor, and looked like they were there for the taking. We just didn't seem to have any cutting edge at the end. We played lots of pretty football. We got the ball out wide well, we looked by far and away the better side. But just I'm struggling. I'm sure there was, but I'm struggling to remember much by way of goal mouth action, to be honest. So, which is disappointing when you are by far and away the better team. So you've travelled all that way, and I was looking for a little bit more polish in that last third. You're looking for a
spark, maybe. You're looking for a spark.
Yeah, and it just didn't seem to come. We just seemed it wasn't that we were going through the motions, because I think we were better than that, but it was that we didn't. Whether we thought it was going to come and just felt we could keep plugging away and eventually it would happen, I don't know. But I just don't ever remember us particularly troubling their goalkeeper. I think there was one, wasn't there? There was one decent save, as I think about it now.
The one decent chance, Kesh got free on the left, and he pulled it. Medine actually I'm not just saying this because it's Medine for comic purposes, but Medine sort of did one of those really well-timed runs where he holds back and then goes. And I think he put it a little bit over the top. It wasn't a great finish from him. But that was the one chance that we really made a clear chance. And the rest was, as you say, we kind of made good positions and didn't really do the last bit of it.
My gut reaction is if we'd had 2 up front on Saturday, I think we'd have won. But, hindsight's a wonderful thing.
So
yeah,
Sean,
for me, I
think.
Yeah.
So Sean, do you think Critchley's reverting back to this? He'd almost burst out of changing our formation to kind of match up and beat the team, and we'd seen in recent games that we're playing to our strengths for once, and we're saying, "Well, you come and beat us," rather than "I'll be too clever." So I think he's kind of reverting back to the more cautious approach. Do you think, as Tim just said, a 4-4-2, and I think we'd have beaten them comfortably?
No, to be honest, I don't agree, because I think I thought I liked Medine's performance because it showcased that he's actually a good technical player, and his link-up play was good. I just think that the way that we were playing off the ball and winning the ball high up the park was set and made for Lavery to then make a bursting run in behind their defence when you're stretching them, when they're out of position because you've won the ball off them at the back, and we're striking on the counter. It seemed like it was an imbalance of us winning the ball on the counter-attack at pace, but then playing it into Medine for him to hold it up and wait for runners to get in behind him. That doesn't really balance well if you're going to play that way. So I think it's almost as if we'd have swapped the striker substitutions around, it would have been a completely different game. I think we played the correct formation. I think we set up the right way, because that's where we're at our best, winning the ball high up the park, being disciplined off the ball and waiting for an opportunity to pounce. And when we do pounce, we pounce at pace. The deliveries into the box were poor. The final third quality was poor, as Critchley's said, basically blasted them about. James was needlessly shooting from bizarre angles for me when there was a better pass on in the counter-attack, and you could see we were starting to snatch at things when things weren't coming off. So I wouldn't slate Medine personally, because I think he showed the elements of his game that I prefer. I don't see the point in him being this lumbersome target man. I don't get it, because we're better than that. Like I've said before, we're better than doing that. We can play through the thirds. We can play well off the ball. We don't need to have Medine just up there winning headers. You can play him as that technical player, and he showed it. But if you're playing that way, you've got a hold-up player and then you've got runners in behind. You don't do that when you're on the counter-attack like that, when you're winning balls high up the park. You do that building from the back. So I just think it was a little bit disjointed up top, but generally I thought it was set up well. We just completely lost shape in the second half, or majority of the second half, which ended up being our unravelling. And they turned it into a scrap as well, and we just don't really cope well with that still.
You were quite critical of Lee Bowyer on the preview show, weren't you, Sean? And he's shithoused his way to victory, hasn't he?
He actually mentioned that in his post-match press conference.
Well, this one's for Sean McGinley.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. He's not got much to it. Like, at the end of the day, it was our own undoing, that the game, and they didn't particularly win the game. It was more we lost it on our own accord. So, like I say, I'm sure we'll hopefully get revenge in the return fixture if he's still there.
Mitch, Sean mentioned Reece James there, dragging a couple of opportunities wide. They were good opportunities, weren't they, for him to hit the target? But I think he's had a fairly decent game again, hasn't he? And I think he's come into his own a bit now. Now he's actually playing in his proper position on the pitch.
Yeah, he has. I like what he does. I like his ability to burst forward. I like that he's looking for that ball, and he's quite rapid. And I think those shots were kind of symptomatic of our forward play as a whole, that we'll just look to be rushing it in that final third. And I actually thought Demi Mitchell played really well. I thought he worked really, really hard. I thought he did a remarkable job of getting up and close to Medine, but then also getting back in front of James. And I thought he played really well, except for that final delivery where he seemed to suffer from the same thing, where he he managed to get the balance between. He's got a habit, Mitchell, of falling over when he's beaten somebody, and he managed to get the balance right between actually staying on his feet and carrying on with the run and buying those free kicks he buys. And he had some nice runs, but then he put some atrocious balls through at the end when he'd done all the hard work. And I thought him and James were probably guilty of that. 2 or 3 times of just rushing that final touch that could have made, what was ultimately one decent chance into 3 or 4 decent chances. And I think, if you got 3 or 4 decent chances in a half, you're probably going to put one away and you're looking at a different game. But I saw it overall quite like Sean did. And the thing I really liked was how, okay, our final product wasn't that good, but when we did get the ball, and after about the first 10, 15 minutes, we were winning all the second balls and we were closing down Birmingham very quickly. We seemed to attack really quite directly. We seemed to move the ball really well. We'd move it out of defence. We'd sort of interchange. Dale was switching play quite nicely, and we were getting into their final third quickly, and we weren't playing that sort of irritating style of football where we get it, advance to the halfway line, go back to Marvin, go to Jimmy, he goes to Grimshaw, he goes back to Marvin, back to Jimmy, back to Grimshaw, into midfield, back again. We were playing really quite directly, and I thought we did a really good job of putting the pressure on, but then didn't do enough with the pressure, if that made sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Mitch kind of nailed it there. For me, I thought we played pretty well in the whole of the first half, and we got into some good positions, and ultimately we just couldn't do anything with it or create the odd half chance. So what was the atmosphere in the concourses like at half time? Were you all reasonably happy and confident?
Yeah, it was quite lively at half time, to be fair. All the songs were going out, and beer was being drunk as usual.
Has Raggy written the Lavery song yet? That's what I want to know.
No, he's actually, if he doesn't get his act sorted out, I'm going to have to find a new composer. We're not going to say too much, are we, John? But we've got the next song lined up for him. A very
famous song that echoed throughout Wembley in a big major tournament recently.
Ooh, there's a bit of a big clue there. It's like one of those quizzes you do, isn't it? Where it's the bloody answers obvious.
Clue.
But I think there's a song there for Lavery, and I've left it in his trusted hands, and he's a bit slow, isn't he? Really, I think it's about 5 or 6 weeks ago now. He says he's working on it. So
artists sometimes need drugs or to drink heavily.
I want it echoing round on Boxing Day. So he's got a task on his hands to get it up and running and to get a few trial runs out beforehand. So
let's get him plenty of double vodka Red Bulls down him. Get those vocals flying anyway. Tim, sorry.
But I think it was relatively positive at half time. I think it was, we're the best team. We were the best team. Bit prosaic, I think was the word you were looking for before, John. Just lacking in a bit of imagination. And I think probably if we'd had that, then we could have got in 1 or 2 goals to the good. And I think we probably, that was that first half was our chance to sort of assert ourselves. And it's probably, in reality, and listen, we've come a long way in a very short space of time. But it's our lack of goals is our undoing, if anything, isn't it? We never put teams to the sword, and really that first half they were just there. They were just there waiting, for the killer punch from us, and it never quite came.
Sean, as Tim's mentioned there, lack of goals could possibly be our undoing. I'll just read out our last 6 results: won 1-0, lost 1-0, drew 1-1, drew 1-1, drew 0-0, lost 1-0. Worried?
Yeah, well, I'm not worried because, ultimately it balances out, doesn't it? And we're mid-table and we're a newly promoted side, so it's hard to. I worry because I have these massive expectations now because of how well we know we can play at our best. That you kind of get carried away a little bit, but. I mean, it's been coming because we haven't created many chances in games where we have won, and it's kind of covered over the cracks a little bit in terms of the fact that we just don't create enough. We created quite a lot in the West Brom game, in that 0-0 game, which seemed like a bit of a one-off because of how open both sides were. But generally, we've been under 1 XG in probably, I think, about 7 of the last 10 matches. And ultimately, if you're going to do that, you're going to end up reverting to the mean eventually. And I think that coincides with Lavery's absence as well. I think that we're starting to realise now that perhaps Lavery is a step above the rest of the strikers that we have in terms of his just sheer quality in front of goal. And the amount of chances he creates for himself, it's his movement. And I think we miss movement in the number 9 position, particularly in behind. I mean, like I'll keep going on to, but in that first half, if Lavery had played, I'm pretty convinced that we would have ended up scoring 2 or 3 goals because he would have added that extra final touch on the play and us constantly winning the ball high up the pitch, constantly getting the ball in good areas. Keshi basically ran that game in the first half, and if he had Lavery making runs, it not only stretches the defence that Lavery can get in behind, it opens up space on the edge of the box for Dale and Mitchell to come inside, and it just gives us more attacking options. And I think perhaps we lacked that striker that will stretch the defence but can also get a chance out of nothing as well. So I'm not too concerned, simply because we're still way above a good 6-7 teams in the Championship in terms of those sorts of metrics. So it's not a worry personally, but I think it'll be a worry it won't be a worry. It'll be more a frustration for Critchlow because he knows we're better than that. He knows that we can, especially when games are there for the taking, like they were against Birmingham, to come away losing. He must be so frustrated.
I think, Mitch, that's the thing, isn't it? We're not winning games when they're there for the taking, aren't we? And it's like this pattern from last season. We're beating the top teams and we're failing to beat and put away the less effective teams. I won't say rubbish teams because we're in the Championship, but maybe that's a sign of how far we've come over the past year that we're even talking like this in the Championship.
Yeah, and without being irritatingly sanguine about it, we got a little bit lucky with one or two of our results. The Sheffield United game was we didn't exactly dominate that football match, and yet we won it 1-0. And we've gone to Birmingham and certainly dominated the first half, and we've lost it 1-0. And it happens. And yeah, it is a sign of how far we've come, and it's also a sign of what a quality player we have in Lavery, that we're missing a striker desperately, and it's not Yates and it's not Medine from last year. It's actually the lad that we've brought in from Irish, well, not non-league football, but from Northern Irish nowhere football, and that shows A, how far we've come, and B, what impact some of our summer business has had, that's the player that we're missing. When I think we probably all thought that Lavery would be back up for Yates. I think that's what we thought we'd have, is this lad who would come on and run around for 20 minutes at the end when Jerry got tired. And actually it's turned out that he is the key. And I think what nailed it before was that thing that I don't think he's actually any better finisher than Jerry is. He'll make another 2 or 3 chances than Jerry will make in a game, and that's the key to him. That he is the one striker that will make. He's a player who will make chances for himself. We said, didn't we, that he's a combination of a bit like Yates and Medine, but he's a bit like Yates and Medine with a bit of the good Josh Bowler in him. He'll absolutely terrify the hell out of defences when he runs at them, as well as he will sort of acting like a conventional striker. He's really good when he drifts wide, as well as down the middle. I'm making him into this amazing player. He's got a bit of everybody in him.
And he looks like a combination of Rooney and Charlie Adam, in my opinion.
He does, doesn't he? Yeah.
Facially and bodily. He's a metamorphosis of the pair of them. We'll talk about Josh Bowler in the player ratings section, because I know Sean's got a bit to say about that. So we'll leave that and we'll move on, Tim, to the goal. I mean, the second half, it was quite dull, wasn't it? There wasn't a lot of chances, and for me, I think it was inevitable that they were going to score.
Yeah, it's what the longer the game goes on, and the longer we go without actually converting our possession and our superior play into a goal scoring opportunity, the more you could see this is what happens in the Championship, isn't it? You've said it before. There aren't, when you say lesser teams, it's less than Fulham or Bournemouth or QPR or West Brom.
Sometimes
they've still got decent players. They've generally got decent goalkeepers. They've often got 2 or 3, really, really good players in the side, and you get punished. And it was a very frustrating way to lose the game, because and cards on the table. I've not got around to watching it back. I've just had a really long day at work today, and I was planning to have a look at it at lunchtime. Didn't get a chance, but from what I can gather, it's maybe somebody else is better speaking about it. But it was a good yard offside, and that's really disappointing when you come away from home that you haven't at least taken a point when you have been the better team, and we've dropped points because of poor officials, and as we did against QPR. So very, 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 very disappointing, and it was very subdued on Polton bus on the way back.
Even a few fresh Duracells and the Duracell bunny weren't enough to ignite a jovial trip on the way back. Sean, the goal itself, I'm just looking on the official Twitter feed. It says Lucas, and I won't pronounce his surname, I'll let you do that, bundles it in from close range. And I think that kind of describes the game off to a T, and the defeat off in a T, I think. Yeah,
just as a side, Matty put a tweet out of like a fan video that showed that he was level when the ball was played in. It was just a really good run at the back post. That he timed his run really well, and it was the pace that he kind of got in at that it always looks worse than it initially is. But it like you say, it was starting to come. I think we'd done really well to defend our 18-yard box yet again in that game. I think you look at the past, like obviously West Brom before that, and then against Birmingham. It's just, we are really good at defending our 18-yard box generally in a game, but sometimes if you've got that much pressure on you, we were inviting pressure onto ourselves from about the 70th minute onwards, and obviously we'll come on to why I think that was. But again, it's you just see the importance in this division. We said it on the preview show, said it time and time again. Every single player has to be right on it, on and off the ball, if you're going to win in this division. And it's time and time again that we keep saying that. And ultimately, that was what cost us. It was the fact that one weak link in that sense off the ball disrupts the whole system and the shape, because you get outnumbered very quickly, particularly against the back three. If you've only got 2 central midfielders, and that's what opened up the space out wide, that's what got the ball into the box, and that's why we lost the game. So it's fine margins when you're doing that. And I just think, I know he said wait for the player ratings, but I can't, because I just think that like at the end of the day, like I said it on the preview show, if you're going to have a luxury player that doesn't do the off the ball work, they have to be provided.
To be fair to Sean, before he starts off on this, he did say this ad nauseum on the preview show, and he's been saying this quite regularly. So away you go. He's Josh Bolo we're talking about, aren't we?
Yeah, look, he's clearly a very good player when he's on it. He's clearly got the talent to make something of himself, and I'm sure that we'll mould him into something, because we always end up doing that. But at the moment, when you've got a luxury player that doesn't do the work off the ball, doesn't seem intent on doing the work off the ball, which I think is worse than not doing it, or doing it correctly.
You don't mind a player that's crap, do you, as long as you put effort in? I've always said this. I don't mind a 100% player. Never will. Never will slag off 100% player.
Yeah, and look, I'm not going to dig the guy out, because I don't know I can't tell his mentality. I can't look into his head, can I? I don't know what he's actually doing. But for me, he's more interested in finding the right position for himself than he is for finding the right structure for the team. And unfortunately, you don't create chances by just getting yourself in the right position. You create chances by your team being correctly set up off the ball so that they can win the ball back to put you in on goal. And ultimately, whenever he got the ball, he was trying to dribble past players, and it was one-dimensional again. And the problem is, when Josh Bowler comes onto the pitch, we go one-dimensional. We look to channel our direct play directly through him, when really our best creative play this season, like games in the likes like Reading, is when we're constantly on the move and shifting the ball about that front four. And Bowler doesn't provide that. I think we get a bit lazy when Bowler comes on the pitch, personally, in terms of our creative play.
I'm just looking on
1 goal and 1 assist.
1 assist. Yeah.
And look, he's clear. Like I say, he's clearly a very talented dribbler, but his final ball is poor, and he's just not providing at the moment. So for me, I don't see how he even has an impact off the bench at this point because
what I found frustrating watching it in the flesh was he just seemed to run into trouble when he came on and lost the ball, and then all of a sudden, because I can't remember, it was Sterling had gone out wide of him. And he'd drawn the man, and it was nailed on. Anybody, somebody in John's team would have done it. You'd have played. I think it was Sterling in. You'd have played Sterling in, and then we're getting a cross. He doesn't. He goes straight at the man, loses possession. We've got 5 or 6 pushing on the edge of their area, and all of a sudden they're breaking against us, and we're in trouble. And he didn't do it once. He must have done it at least conservatively 3 times in the 20 minutes he was on. And for me, that was unbelievably frustrating because there were better options on in each one of those 3 occasions. There was an option that he didn't take. It was, I'm going to dribble through, and he lost it every single time. So that's not what you're looking for from an impact player coming off the bench, are you? You're looking for them to draw the man, get it to somebody else, and then hopefully you're going to get a shot off.
Yeah, for me, I thought Mitchell was hard.
Mitch, you're looking him to be that kind of gravity player, aren't you, that we've talked about? Well, and look at Josh Melling's comment there. A number of times I've noticed players shouting at Bowler on Saturday. I think he's starting to annoy his teammates too. So what's your views on the Bowler situation?
Look, I love to see a flair player, and I spent the entirety of Kaikai's career saying get off his back, he's a flair player. I don't actually like the phrase luxury player. I don't like that phrase because I think there are different sorts of players, and some players are good at passing and dribbling and threading the ball, and you need those players because if you've just got 10 Neil Bishops, you're going to lose every week. So actually it's not a luxury to have players who will win.
I don't know about that. Neil Bishop.
Bishop was a great player. Yeah.
He was your avatar for ages, wasn't he?
He was my boy.
We all love Gary Brabham. We all loved Andy Morrison. There's a whole history of these players, but they win the ball and they give it to a different sort of player who'll hurt the opposition. But Bowler is. I'm sorry, we let somebody go last. And I'm not going back to the Kaikai thing, but it's an illustrative.
Kaikai was more effective. Yeah,
we let him go last year because Critch didn't trust him. Now Kaikai could dribble. Bowler's a better dribbler than Kaikai, but he could dribble. But he could pick a pass. He could play a part in a move, and he was an intelligent footballer. And yeah, his form dipped in and out, but he had an array of skills. He could shoot. He could take a dead ball. He didn't always do it perfectly, but he had an array of skills. And that's why I always stuck up for him, because I always felt that with Kaikai on the pitch, there's a chance that something could happen. And increasingly, Bowler just reminds me of, he won't be watching because he supports Liverpool. So he reminds me of my mate John when he was growing up, who just used to get the ball. My mate John, he was signed on amateur forms or on youth forms for Wigan Athletic, and he was the best out of us lot. And when we used to play on the park, he used to just run round to demonstrate he was the best until eventually one of us would trip him up. And then he'd get up, go, as if there was going to be a referee come and send us off, but there wasn't. And that's what Bowler reminds me of. He irritates me because he gets it and just does the same bloody run every time. And exactly as Rich has just said, like Martin Bullock, but I actually really liked Bully. Bowler's starting to annoy me. Now, we all said on the pod, we all said this about 6-7 weeks ago, is we need to show patience with Josh Bowler. We all said that and we all agreed, yeah, we need to show patience with Josh Bowler. But I'm finding it quite difficult, to be honest, because I wouldn't mind if he was just, if he was just not beating people, or but it's like that fact that he looks like he's not arsed. And it doesn't feel like with a player like Kaikai, I never read that Kaikai wasn't arsed. I read that he'd trot around and do that shuttling up and down most of the time. He just wasn't very good at it. But with Bowler, he just kind of throws his arms in the air and points at random things. And he was just hopelessly unpredictable.
Screaming at points.
If you've got, if you want to be one of these luxury players, you have to. If you want to write those checks, you have to cash them, don't you? You want to
Well,
play that
that's the
role.
thing is when I say luxury player, I mean in our system, the off the ball work. I always say it, then it gets boring. But the off the ball work is the more important part of the game than the on the ball work for us because that's how we create the bulk of our chances. And as the frustration for me is you don't see that he's learning anything week on week. He's not going, oh well, I've done this last week, and now I'm going to go and I'm going to sort of work on my game because look at how Critchley develops players, how quickly he's developed players that we essentially had written off. Is he not picking it up? Is he not? Because he's not. Nothing has changed about the way Josh Bowler is playing football right now, and it's never going to improve if he's not got the off the ball work, and it doesn't seem like he's ever going to develop it. That's my frustration, is that we're basically going the same as we're doing the same thing time and time again and expecting different results with him.
That's part of what's so enjoyable about watching him is he's this sort of raw, uncoached player that's playing with this. He's a bit like a firework that gets lit and he just off he goes, and that's really, really thrilling to watch. But I totally agree with you about that lack of learning. Now, again, I'm just comparing him to Kai because he was last year's luxury player. We could go back through lots of players. But the number of times Kai last year was playing in a position that he hadn't really played before. The number of times he scored goals by appearing late off the left and just tapping it in, which was clearly part of some coaching from Critchley. It was clearly part of a structure of the way CJ would pull it back and you'd think, oh, it's gone behind Yates, another shit cross, and then Kaika would pop it. He scored 3 or 4 like that. Have we seen Bowler ever do something like that where you feel that it's come as part of what has happened as part of the team structure or the team plan? What he's done has just been moments of individual brilliance. And it's that sense that, exactly as you say, can he actually do that? Does he even listen to the team talk, or does he just does it just go in one ear and out the other? Which is I don't know. It's
not good enough. Let's be honest. It's not good enough. We're a championship football team, and I don't. Like I said, I love watching him when he's at his best. Clearly, and it'd be great if he could become this player. But for me, it's a game of percentages, isn't it? In these tight, narrow affairs, you look at the way that we played in the first half. If he'd have just kept knocking the ball inside Takeshi and letting us recycle possession in and around their box, and then made that same run just without the ball, he'd have had a better chance at goal than if he tried to take on the 3 individual players that were sat in front of him. And he doesn't seem to understand that it's a game of percentages and that the better move is to recycle the possession, wait for the gap in behind, and make the run in behind. Because I don't give players like that time when they don't seem like they're learning anything, and he doesn't seem to be changing the way that he wants to play. And I just think the amount of effort Mitchell put in that first half to make us, that was what made us play so well, because him and everyone else in that attacking 4 were working their backsides off to track down the different elements of the game, and there were triggers of the press. And the minute that Bowler came on, the whole system off the ball completely broke down.
Well, when I know we'll move off this because other people probably talk, but when we first signed Demi, I gave him the name on my blog of Headless Demi, and because he was as headless as Bowler is. He just got it and just ran all over the place and looked like that show-off kid on the playground. And he has learned so much positional discipline. He works really bloody hard for the team. And I think he sometimes gets a bit of stick from people because he isn't as exciting and he isn't as, Mitchell, he's a bit average. But the work he puts in and the way he's developed as a player, and the fact he's also learnt a new position because he came to us as a left back. He happened to be one of the worst left backs I've ever seen in my life, but that's by the by. He came to us as a left back or a wing back, and he now plays as a right-sided inverted winger. And he's learned to play that, because the first time I saw him play right-sided inverted winger, I was nearly sick in my own mouth. It seemed that unnatural to him. But look at how he's developed. Look at how he's played, and look at what happens if you will open your eyes and ears to the quality of the coaching you're getting, and you don't just run around because that's what you've always done since you were a kid, because you've always been better at dribbling than anybody else. I love Josh Bowler. I love him vaulting over 3 players in a row. I can't remember what game it was. It was one of the most thrilling things I've ever seen at Bloomfield. It was brilliant. It was one of the best runs I've ever seen. But it's feeling frustrating because teams have cottoned on that he can do that. They get into him straight away. They cut that off, and he doesn't know how to cope with it. And he's going to have to wake up and learn a bit more brains than, or he's not. It's going to be the same as wherever he was last. Was he on loan at Hull? Wherever he was on loan, where he played about 25 games and they stopped playing him, and it'll be the same story because Critch will give him so much, and he'll always give a player a bit more than maybe we would, but then after that, they're gone.
That's the thing.
Well, you could say with John Jules, haven't we? I think once you're gone, you're gone.
Yeah.
I think with John, this is the thing with. Sorry,
hang on a minute, Sean. Let's just bring Simmons to have the final word here. There's a relevant comment coming in. I bet Bowler won skills competition when he was younger, but ultimately no one told him he'd need basic passing and shooting to make it as a footballer. And Tim, with your experience being a youth coach, you do see this, don't you? So what would you do to remedy this? And you'd like to think that Critch is the man to do this.
Yeah. You'd have to play one-touch football in training.
One touch?
Week after week. You'll have one touch, that's it. No dribbling.
But Tim, you've been banging his drum, Bowler, as we all have. And he's gone from hero to villain in quite a short space of time.
But I think that for the reasons the lads have articulated, I think with some justification, because as somebody said in the comments, and I think it's sort of point that resonates with me. You know, he's scored that sort of semi-wonder goal against Fulham, and he seems like all he wants to do. It's like what they do on like Soccer Saturday, where they try and not Soccer Saturday when they try and recreate the great goals of the past, and
Phoenix
that's all he seems to want to do. Is
Phoenix from the flames on fantasy football.
He just basically wants to do the same thing again, and you know,
even that Fulham goal was a scab, really. If you think about it, it wasn't a great finish into the corner, was it?
It sort of fell it over.
We can't do this now. We've got to slate everything. I'm frustrated because I know that. I'm frustrated because I know that if that opposite the ball side of the game comes into Josh Bowler, he's going to be a phenomenal footballer, and that's the frustrating thing with me. You can see that he has all the makings of a phenomenal footballer, and that's why I get frustrated, because I wouldn't care less if he was just crap. But I get
he brought the ball down on a sixpence at one point, and I can't remember how the ball came to him, but it was exquisite, and you can see
he's technically the best footballer in this squad, isn't he?
Keshi Anderson says hello.
Well, you know what I'm saying, though. He can do things that no one else can do in that squad.
What's that? Run into defenders.
Oh, well, you know what I mean. I'm going to mute him in a minute. Tim, sorry.
No, but in all seriousness, you don't want to lose the best bits of his game, and you don't want to lose that unpredictability he can bring. But he can't be unpredictable with every ball that he has. He's got to mix that up, and so that teams don't think he's just going to take them on every time, because that's what they just look now. He's just going to run out. So all they need to do, the defender needs to stand up, get his foot in. They're not stupid. They're good defenders, and 9 times out of 10 they're going to take the ball off his feet. And that he as a coach, if I had a player like that, they would be the most frustrating player to manage. And we've all had them. You'll have them in a few years' time, where they'll just play for themselves rather than the team.
Now.
And calling out little kids on your pod.
1 or 2, actually. 3 or 4.
Great.
But the only way you stop players doing that is to reduce the number of touches they can have, and you shouldn't be having to do that with a 25-year-old professional footballer.
How old
and
is he?
He's always flicking his
I'm
hair.
guessing he's 25. He's not that young, is he?
He loses the ball and then he flicks his curtains, and that really annoys me. It's jealousy. It's envious. I'm just laughing at the thought of John getting us all down to watch his team and then doing player ratings at the end.
Oh, he's a bit younger than I thought. He's 22. So
he's only 22. He's 22.
Yeah, so he looks a bit older to me.
Look at him on that picture as well, on his wiki picture. He's got a skinhead. Well, he's got a crew cut. Maybe
3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, he's my favourite player. This is how fickle we are. You know, obviously, apart from Gary and Jimmy, of course, the sainted Jimmy. But I loved him 3 weeks ago, and now my head's in my hands. But I got bollocked in our holiday cottage because I swore so loudly at one little run he had. I was watching the game on my little phone, and obviously they're in the front room and watching the kitchen. And one little run near the end, it must have been one right near the end. I shot, fucking hell, Josh! Going, what's going on? What's going on? So
what's happened?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just Josh Bowler's not delivered the final ball again. But joking aside, I think it's what one of you said. I can't remember. The frustrating thing is that we know he can be a world beater, can't he? And I think the final word is he's only 22, and who better than Neil Critchley to bring it out of him? So let's move on. And move on to the player rating section. Right, you can have Josh Bowler then. That's Hannah's. Right, so let's start with Sean. You can have Dan Grimshaw.
Yeah, fair. Dan Grimshaw was Dan Grimshaw. He had a decent game. He's fair enough. I still keep making this point that I think that we miss Maxwell's speed of distribution. I think Grimshaw's a more accurate distributor of the ball, but I think Maxwell gets us going quicker, and we kind of can beat the traps that the opposition set. But yeah, it was fine. So I think 7 is fine for me.
Tim Dujon Sterling.
I
think it's going to be an for every single one of these players.
Yeah, I think again, we're sort of looking back at this with I don't know what the opposite of rose tinted glasses is, but I think we can't forget that we did play some decent football in the first half, and we were over the 90 minutes the better side. But yeah, I can't remember anything specifically outstanding. I think it's a 7. I've got 7+. I'm going to be generous. 7+.
Implementing the FPRS system there. Big Marv, Mitch.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think either centre half did anything particularly wrong. I could be wrong, but again, I was watching a tiny phone screen. I didn't think either of them were particularly culpable for the goal. Correct me if I'm wrong. Sean actually knows about football, so I'm looking at him and he's not looked horrified by that statement. So I think, to be fair, Big Marv probably deserves an 8 on the basis that I think he played as well as he's played in previous games that we've won. And I think there's a danger when we do player ratings that we actually rate the result, not the player's performance. Yeah. And I think Marv played as well. And I can't remember him doing anything stupid. And he looked pretty dominant and he used the ball and moved it well. And I thought both him and Jimmy played well.
I agree. Absolutely agree with that. What was the score?
8.
Jimmy Husband, Sean. I think he's our top-rated player on the FOTMob app.
Yeah, and my other employer, Who Scored, who also rated him the highest. Yeah, it was. I thought he was man of the match. I thought, look, I've kind of been a bit wary about whether he can play in a back 4, and he's very quickly making me look like an idiot. In terms of the way that he defends his 18-yard box, I think that a lot of that again is Marv always instills that confidence in the other centre-half pair in that they know that they can take more risks, they can take more gambles because they know that he's going to come in and recover anyway. But he defended his box really well against a really physical pairing of strikers for Birmingham. So an 8 for me as well. And I think he's just coming on leaps and bounds this season. To be honest, I didn't think he'd be anywhere near a first team place. I thought he was kind of going to be a middling League One player, and he's very quickly showing just how good he is.
Tim, Reece James goes from strength to strength, apart from his crap dragged shots.
Yeah, and I think bearing in mind, he's only been in for a few weeks. He seems to have settled down, and he looks reliable as a defender, which is a great starting point. And I didn't, I think Garbutt's the one who's got to worry that he's not going to get his place back because I think James is a better all-round player. His delivery's normally pretty good. He's energetic. He tracks back. He gets his tackles in. So I thought he had a reasonable game. I think he looks very, very competent at this level. So 7+.
I was thinking 7+. Great minds think alike, Tim. Kenny Dougal, Mitch.
I don't think this is one of Doug's vintage performances. And I'm going to waffle slightly to get to the point, but I thought actually one of the reasons for picking Connolly was to maybe free Dougal up a bit more than he might otherwise have been done with Wintle. Because I mean, he's a very good all-round midfielder, but he's not what you would call primarily a defensive midfielder, and I think Connolly is. And I thought maybe the idea was that it would free Dougs up a bit more to play the ball and play football. And I don't remember him being especially bad, but I don't really remember him having a particularly strong impact on the game. I mean, he moved the ball fine in the first half when we were moving the ball quite well. And second half, he didn't seem to particularly do anything I can remember. I mean, he had a few Kenny Dougal moments where he made a good tackle and he turned in a little bit of space and he held players off. But it was... When I looked at the team, I thought, oh, this could be interesting because he's going to have a bit more space to play it than he might otherwise have. And I don't think he lived up to that. So, 7.
That was a McGinley-style monologue on a player rating.
I didn't really know what to give him, so I was just buying time until a number came.
I was a bit worried we might not even make an hour on this show. How wrong I was. Right, Sean, Callum Connolly, perplexingly picked in that CDM.
That was a monologue. Wait for this one.
Right, wind it up, Sean. Wind it up, and away you go.
Yeah, I agreed with the selection I said at the start, just personally because I thought it was a good chance to rest Wintle, as I said. And in the first half, we showed that we weren't missing Wintle. I didn't think it was just the quality in the final third that let us down. He broke up play quite well in the first half, and then obviously as the second half went on, we were starting to get overrun in midfield, as we've mentioned, and it kind of showed up his weaknesses more than say Dougal. Dougal looked more assured than Connolly did in that central midfield area when we were sort of under the cosh. But as I've said before, I don't think he's a central midfielder generally. I don't think he's even a defensive midfielder generally. I think he's a centre half in a back three, and I don't think we'll ever get to see him play there on a consistent basis. So 6+, because at the end of the day, he was the one that looked probably the most overawed, let's say, in the last 20 minutes than the other players in the team. So, yeah, 6+.
Okay,
I've got a random Callum Connolly stat, which is that he actually won 6 headers, which is really unusual. If you look at our midfield stats, we win almost no duels in central midfield aerially in most games, which is possibly another reason why he was brought in, because maybe that's something that they were concerned about, is Birmingham's physicality in midfield, which with Wintle and Dougal, you're not going to win that many headers, and maybe that's why they played Connolly. I've been harsh on Kenny. Can I adjust it to a 7+?
No, sorry.
All right.
I was going to say with that, they had long throws as well, didn't they? And we seemed to drop Connolly into the box to defend those long throws as well. I think he probably won a couple headers off them. So yeah, like you say, him dropping a bit deeper seemed like the ploy to match their physicality.
Method in the madness. Dimitri Mitchell, Tim.
Industrious, I think, is probably the adjective to use, isn't it? I thought he had a decent first half. Probably, I bet in himself he's a little bit disappointed he got subbed. And I think we most certainly didn't look as good a team, as a good a unit when he did depart. So whether he'd given it his all, I don't know. Or maybe it's just that I suspect it was more a case of Critch thought that Bowler might unlock tired defences. I think that the highest compliment can pay. I suspect we wouldn't have lost if he'd stayed on the pitch. I think I think the way that we played went downhill when he left. So not an 8-, just a little bit above a 7.
We could do an alternative FPS where Tim just writes a list of adjectives. Like, he just went industrious for Mitchell. And then instead of giving them a number, we could just choose one of Tim's adjectives to apply to the player.
Like a multiple choice.
Yeah. Like a drop down on a form.
Like it. We'll try and introduce it for Christmas special. Keshi Anderson, Mitch, as good as ever, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was good, and I like I said at the beginning, I liked the idea that he was going to be pulling the strings in that game. I mean, look, I'll defend Gary to the hilt, but I probably agree that he may be. I think the idea probably was that Anderson would get beyond Medine, and Medine would kind of be the pivot, but didn't really quite work. And I feel had Anderson had a little bit more to work with in terms of movement, then yeah, I agree with that analysis that he'd have probably been able to pull the strings and I'm trying to come up with some weird puppet analogy for a goal, but yeah, he'd have probably been able to set Lavery free. So he was the creative force. I really enjoyed watching him play, and I really, really like seeing us play a number 10. And Critchley just relax a little. And I think, to be honest, that team selection explained that Critchley couldn't bring himself to both throw in a number 10 with the free roll and let everybody else be attacking too. That was just too much for him because he so rarely does that anyway. So 8+ for Kesh. He was good.
Owen Dale, Sean, flashes of brilliance, but flat to deceive overall. Your views?
No, I thought he was all right. Again, he was doing his job off the ball, which is important first. I don't think he necessarily came in as a player that we quite expected to be like that. I thought he was going to be more of a bowler where he's more sort of just gets himself in the good positions, but he has really quickly adapted to our system. He worked well with Reece James, allowing him to overlap as well, which was important. Obviously, delivery wasn't the best, as it wasn't for most players, and final quality on the ball in the final third was pretty abject if we're going to be winning games like this. So a 7, I thought he was good overall. I just wanted to say as well, Keshi's centre of gravity, by the way, like how he was just able to hold off these really physical Birmingham midfielders is quite impressive to me. I think
he's
really
good at getting free. He's good at getting free kicks as well. Isn't he? He's got the arse.
He's just becoming a more complete player. He's becoming more of a complete player game on game.
I think if we were doing a player of the half season award, I think Keshi would be the number one contender.
Well, one thing, having just talked about Mitchell, Anderson and Dale, I was quite disappointed how they didn't seem to rotate. We didn't really, we haven't discussed the fact that the balls into the box were awful. We had Medine, who is his big strength is, heading it at the far post. And we never even tried whatever the word is for de-inverting the wingers. And also, we didn't, I think Dale's probably got what it takes to play inside as well as outside. And we didn't try swapping Mitchell to the left, Kesh to the right, Dale to the middle, then Dale to the left, Kesh to the... And I don't know, it just felt like it's easy to say, well, it's easy to say that we didn't deliver the right balls and we picked the wrong striker, but did we mix it up enough in the game with the players who are on the pitch, if that made sense?
Mm. Okay, and to finish this out, and I think we'll call it a day after this, Gary Medine, Tim. For me, Medine, he's missing chances that Gary Medine should be scoring, headers in particular, and there was one in this game as well.
I just don't think he works. The theory of what we were trying to do there with him as using using the pivot and then having players play off him works in theory, but the execution of it was a little bit lacking. And I think that's partially down to him, but also partially down to the fact that I think he works best when there's a player playing quite close to him who can play right off him and if you've got 3 behind, they're quite often not close enough to him. And I think the point made earlier about maybe Critch thought that Keshi was going to play further up and right up with him. But I think Keshi's was almost like our playmaker, isn't he? And I think he's sometimes got to go a bit deep to have that influence. So, yeah, he didn't play badly, but it wasn't very effective. So I think it's 7-.
Maybe give him a 6 for this game.
Ooh, maybe. You are out of the gang, my friend. Out of the gang. Doubt is all, but it's just doubt is part of faith. Remember that.
Okay, yeah.
Very strange pod. I think he was good.
You see.
Well, 7's a good score. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, the highest score is an 8, and I think, you know, I didn't think he played badly. I just don't think we get the best out of him unless he's got somebody up alongside him.
Yeah,
Sean, you can come to the Gary Medine Club Treehouse this week.
Kicked out of it, booted out.
Well, I kicked Athers out of it on the preview show too because he wasn't going to pick him. So,
right, gentlemen, just any closing thoughts before we head off?
Yeah, no. Paul Ellis just made a decent point you know, it was very windy out there, and maybe that had some impact on the quality of the balls that were coming in. I just remember it being bitter because we got straight off the coach and straight into the ground. I perhaps didn't realise how windy it was, and obviously we were to a certain degree we weren't cosseted from the cold, but we were cosseted from any wind that existed.
Yeah, so Steve, man of the match. We've got to do that. Let's do man of the match around the room, and then we'll head off. So let's start with Mitch.
Keshi.
Agreed. Keshi for me. Sean?
James Husband. I think he defended the 18-yard box really, really well. And like I say, I think he gets an extra bonus from me because it's not his natural position, which makes it even better.
Timothy?
Keshi for me, just ahead of Hubby, who's my favourite player, Blackpool player at the moment. But Keshi.
Did we rate Josh Bowler? I missed what score.
No, I don't want to go down there. He wasn't
right,
so
okay,
we don't rate. It wasn't.
Of course, yeah, he was a sub,
I think we've done that to death, haven't we? That particular.
Yeah.
What out of interest? What would you have given him?
Oh, go on then.
I just think all of that thing. He was on the pitch for about 17 minutes.
I know.
Wasn't he?
My blood pressure went through the roof.
Let's not.
No,
He'll score a hat trick next week.
He will.
We need a clip. We need a clip of, I think it was Tim saying we're going to need to be patient with him. And this is the point. We all said it. This is the point where we need to be patient with him or give him a good shouting at.
Well, he's having a blip, isn't he? He's like the team's having a blip. So let's hope that Blackpool and Josh Bowler overcome this midterm blip against Luton on Saturday, and we've got a preview show coming on Thursday. Connor's back to deliver his dulcet tones, and we're going to be hopefully having a Luton fan on the show. So please do like and subscribe to this show on YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, hit the notification bell. Get these videos straight down your throat. Right, so as I said, we're coming back on Thursday for the preview show. And all that to be said is thanks for watching, thanks for downloading, and up the pool.
With a great tradition.